There's no story. I didn't do anything.
Well, you took $42,000.
No, I didn't.
You didn't take $42,000?
No. And you can call the detective
I saw
before you air me.
for $42,000.
Okay.
So you don't know anything about this cease and desist order that says you should not be operating buses from Albany to New York City?
This is a direct order from the federal government telling them to stop operating right away.
They still get away with it because there's no real enforcement.
What's the story behind those photos?
I'm trying to think how diplomatically that I can put this.
So you personally weren't aware of the proximity of this center to the school?
Correct, I was not.
So you're saying to me right now that you're going to make sure those sex offenders go to the other location?
Absolutely.
Do you worry that the technology will be obsolete by the time it catches on?
There are a lot of people, and you see this in the comments, and perhaps you'll hear this today, that say, I'm paying my energy bill. I'm having a hard time doing it myself. Now I'm being asked to pay more for people who can't pay their bills.
Was there any explanation given to you before being asked to vote as to why this increase was so large?
Absolutely none. There was a request that came in for the increase for the county executive.
From the county executive? He tells us he did not make a request. The district attorney presented this case to a grand jury. It was a grand jury that decided not to indict the officers. Why are you calling for his resignation? This group is calling for the firing of the police officers and the resignation of the district attorney. Is that something that you support? This is one of the last stages, the drying room. All of this cannabis will be turned into either oil, pill, or liquid form, and hopefully ready for patients to use come this January.
Well, Julia, you can see behind me just the number of protesters that have joined here. They're meeting here. They're planning to walk down through the concourse into the Capitol. You can see their signs, $15 now, we can't wait, pay us a living wage, $15 no less. These are a lot of fast food workers here, also adjunct college professors. They say when you do the math, they're making less than minimum wage as well.
Now, most of Europe is that chip and pin technology, but the banks here say Americans don't want to put another pin in every transaction. This is the crowd. They're actually making their way. I'm going to walk with them here because they have now blocked Henry Johnson Boulevard. Now, you can see there are plenty of signs warning drivers about the change, about these cameras. About a half a mile up the road, there's also one of those big electronic signs warning drivers to stop ahead and make sure they stop. Well, Liz, more than a dozen people surrounded by a few hundred other protesters laid in the middle of Henry Johnson Boulevard for 13 minutes tonight. That's how long Dante Ivy's encounter with police was. Albany police not only let them do it, but they actually blocked traffic in every direction while it was happening. Well, this is a huge sigh of relief for many of these farms. They were facing the real possibility of closure after decades in business if they couldn't find a buyer for this milk.
Yeah, it sure is, Greg. You can see the crowd behind me, and I'm here with the man of the hour himself, the mayor-elect. Thanks for joining us, Pat. How are you feeling right now?
Most employees at least try to hide it. Right, Brandon?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The NCAA making it easy on folks with this boss button you can click right before you're busted.
This is just one of the small snowbanks, and I'm along River Street. This is probably the best you're going to see as far as plowed roads as we've been driving around Troy. This is it. I mean, the rest of the snow, this is the sidewalk. Probably 6 to 8 inches right here. Having a hard time keeping up with it. I just spoke with the mayor about 10 minutes ago. He tells me 2 plow trucks are down, so they're doing the best they can with what they've got.
There are some rules when it comes to where someone can fly a drone. According to FAA regulations, they're not supposed to be flown any higher than 400 feet or within 5 miles of any airport.
Now you can see that the work behind me is still going on here, but most of the major heavy lifting is done. They're just doing some paving and some landscaping, and all of this will be wrapped up and out of here by the end of October. They're hoping to get the funding for phase 2 in the next couple of years and be done with that by 2019.
Yeah, I'm looking at the footwear of you and your friends, and it looks like you guys have some good running shoes on. So were you sprinting at the gate?
I did. I don't sprint for much, but I did sprint for Travers.
Now, do you come to Travers every year, or is American Pharoah a little special for you?
American Pharoah is special, but I've been here the past probably 12, 15 years.
Johnny, what's up? How's your day been here?
Let me tell you something, brothers. This is the place to be here in Clifton Paradise, Buffalo Wild Wings. What you gonna do when March Madness runs wild on you?
Well, there you go. I mean, who could have more fun than I'm having right now? But a lot of people were playing hooky today. And, Johnny, were you playing hooky today?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. All right. Well, he's admitting it at least, but a lot of people aren't. Take a look.
On
On most days, 9 buses operated by Double Happiness leave the capital region headed toward the Big Apple, and most of them are packed with passengers. The company charges $20 one way or $35 round trip.
I've been using it for maybe about 3 years now, and it's always got me to and fro in a timely fashion.
Well, we have family in New York, and we go down there probably 4 times a year.
What these passengers don't know is the operator of the bus line they've trusted to get them to their destination has a, quote, flagrant general disregard for motor carrier safety. That, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation. Inspectors say the company hasn't been monitoring how long drivers are on the road, didn't drug test some of them before they started, falsified maintenance records, and doctored inspections. This cease and desist order declares Double Happiness travel an imminent hazard to passengers, bans the company from selling any tickets or running any buses, and shuts down all operations.
Yet nearly a full week after that order was issued, here I am on one of the company's buses. I was able to board and be on my way to New York City. No mention whatsoever of any safety violations, just the promise of a smooth ride at a good price.
Once we filled in some of the passengers on the violations, they started connecting some of the dots.
We've gotten pulled over before.
And most of the people who work for them don't speak English. I know that.
They have been moving kind of weird because they switched their buses, their online, their website's down.
This storefront on Central Ave in Albany is the main local office. Just one woman was working when we went in, looking for answers.
So you don't know anything about this cease and desist order that says you should not be operating buses from Albany to New York City?
She passed me on to her boss, the owner, based in Pennsylvania. In a very short phone conversation, Lunbing Chen told me he is renting new buses for the time being while he works to correct some of the issues. When pressed for further answers, Chen rushed off the phone and then ignored my follow-up calls. The DOT says it doesn't matter who owns the buses. The company can't just change its name and continue to operate. But that appears to be exactly what's happening. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer has been an advocate for strengthening bus safety regulations, so we brought this situation to his attention.
Jen, there are so many loopholes in the law, and there's so little enforcement that bus companies that don't obey the law run rampant.
And continue to run buses. Although the DOT says Double Happiness could face civil penalties of up to $16,000 per day each time they disobey the order, so far the worst that's happened is a slap on the wrist.
This is a direct order from the federal government telling them to stop operating right away.
They still get away with it because there's no real enforcement. And they should be able right now to just shut this company down.
A sex offender treatment center right in the middle of a neighborhood that's bustling with kids. It's an investigation that we've been working on now for weeks. And tonight, Jennifer Lewke has the real deal on just where the center is and why for decades now, very few people have actually known about it.
On a busy street, in a busy neighborhood, stands an unassuming white house. To a passerby, it blends right in. But what's been going on inside for more than 20 years isn't what you would consider ordinary.
I'm like really shocked about this. Really shocked.
Robert Bailey is a college student and rents out one of the apartments upstairs. He says he was told there's a doctor's office downstairs. And that's true. It's just not the whole truth. CBS 6 has learned this doctor treats violent sex offenders, dozens of them who are on parole and probation.
They hang out on the porch all the time, and like I had no idea. So it's kind of like awkward now that I think about it.
Adam DeFrancisco rents the other apartment in the house. He had no idea what kind of treatment was happening here either.
There's no signs out front. I mean, there's nothing saying like, hey, this is where sex offenders come for rehabilitation. So it's not really advertised that well. Like I'd walk by honestly, and I think it's just a regular house.
And it's not just that this sex offender treatment center is unmarked. It sits on Western Avenue, just a block away from the LaSalle School, a residential treatment center for adolescent boys. Right next to the College of St. Rose, right across the street from an Episcopal church, which provides music lessons to middle school-aged kids every week. And directly in front of St. Catherine's Center for Children, an elementary school serving kids who've been abused, neglected, or homeless.
The kids come out of there every day, and these guys are coming in and out every day, or who else? And, you know, it's kind of scary to think because they can just walk right out of the backyard or right around the corner.
Bill Getman runs St. Catherine's.
There's been this place operating in front of the school for many years now. Did you have any idea what it was?
No, the facility of the home over there, the location, the office has been very quiet. All I care about is making sure our staff and kids are safe.
In fact, none of the schools that surround this center knew it was there, but the federal, state, and county government did. They've been sending some of the most violent sex offenders here for treatment for years. The federal probation department didn't want to go on camera, but told me over the phone that for years they've had a contract to send sex offenders to Forensic Mental Health Associates, which is the name of the business according to official paperwork, although it's not visible anywhere. When I asked whether they were aware of its proximity to schools, I was told, quote, "We don't care where it is as long as it's licensed." Well, the doctor who runs the practice is licensed, but when I called Albany City Codes to see whether she needed or was ever granted a permit to be doing this type of treatment in the middle of a neighborhood, Codes looked up the file and then issued this cease and desist order. Turns out the proper permits were not in place and haven't been for years to be operating any business in this location. Dr. Bianca Schaefer runs the practice. She took it over when her husband passed away last year.
We're with Channel 6. We're just wondering if the doctor is available.
We tried to reach her on several occasions, but she wouldn't take our calls.
Do you know how we can get in touch with her about a story we're working on?
Bianca, Channel 6 News working on a story. I don't know how we can get in touch with her.
She took my card, I never heard back. But the bigger question is for those who spent taxpayer money to contract with a practice that, one, brings sex offenders to the middle of a residential neighborhood for treatment, and two, doesn't even have the proper permits to do it.
They shouldn't be in them areas, and we have to make sure that this company that we're dealing with is licensed to be there, that everything's legit, and I can assure you that we're gonna follow through on this.
Shouldn't that have happened before you entered into an agreement with them?
I agree, but this is a long-term agreement. This is goes back to my predecessor, so this goes back to me even before I became county executive. They've been dealing with this organization for many, many years, so I'm going to address that now, though.
So you personally weren't aware of the proximity of this center to the school?
Correct. I was not. I was not aware of the, I can tell you my passion for protecting our children, if I was aware of it, I would have addressed it sooner.
McCoy says he's working with Dr. Schaefer on the paperwork issues, and he's asking her to move the county offenders to another site, one that's not in the middle of a bustling neighborhood full of kids and college students.
So you're saying to me right now that you're going to make sure those sex offenders go to the other location?
Absolutely.
Keep our voice loud, strong, and right.
Dante Ivy's sister, nieces, and nephews looked on as hundreds gathered in front of police headquarters.
It touches my heart to know that people actually care. They're out here supporting my brother.
Supporting Ivy, but also making demands.
It's another scenario where there's no accountability for Albany police who cause harm.
So the group called for the firing of the officers involved in the case.
Be fired immediately! Be fired immediately!
And the resignation of the district attorney, David Soares.
He has proven to be an adversary.
The district attorney presented this case to a grand jury. It was a grand jury that decided not to indict the officers. Why are you calling for his resignation?
Well, if you look at the situation with grand juries in any city, any county across the country, it is the prosecution that decides whether there will be indictments. They present the case and they get the outcomes that they want.
This group is calling for the firing of the police officers and the resignation of the district attorney. Is that something that you support?
Well, what I'd like to see at this point is, because if those officers are fired, that doesn't solve the problem. The problem lies in the policies that are in place related to situations like this. The problem lies in how do you treat people when you come upon them on the street.
The protesters then took their message on the road.
This is the crowd. They're actually making their way. I'm going to walk with them here because they have now blocked Henry Johnson Boulevard.
They laid in the street for 13 minutes.
No justice, no peace, no racist police.
Before standing and marching to the area where Ivy died. While all of this was going on, Albany police in cars and on horseback actually blocked traffic to give protesters some space.
Justice for Dante!
Police say despite their belief that the officers acted appropriately, they're still working to bridge the gap with the black community.
And when my brother would go out, I would worry about the community more than the people that was there to protect him. I would have never imagined that those were the ones that would bring on his death.
The police chief tells us despite what the crowd was demanding, the officers are not being fired. David Source has no plans of resigning, but both say they are working with the black clergy members and other neighborhood associations to try and better relations between the department and the African American community. It was a long night in a long line for thousands of people.
We got here about 10 o'clock last night.
What's the night been like?
Oh, it's fun. You know, it's a journey. It's all about, you know, living the experience. And Pharaoh's here, so you got to come out early, late, whatever you want to call it.
These guys at the front of the line pumped for the main event.
Always here for Travers, but specifically the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
The Pharaoh. He's American. He does that.
Everyone in line had their own strategy to get a winning spot in the lawn for the big show. Do you have a plan for that? Because this is like a full-on contact sport.
Yeah, we're still trying to decide. I don't know if I want to say it out loud. There's a lot of people listening.
Oh.
But we have some ideas in mind. Get hopefully a picnic table. We got an easy up tent. Get 81 square feet under that thing, and hopefully, you know, have a good time today.
And with that, the gates opened and the first race of the day began. See, there they go. They are off to the races. Look at this guy. He's got his shoes off. That's the fastest way to get there. He's ready to rock. What was your plan of attack?
Spread out, 3 of us at different turnstiles, and then, yeah, just hit the pavement.
Finally got in and made a rush for this place.
Yeah, I'm looking at the footwear of you and your friends, and it looks like you guys have some good running shoes on. So were you sprinting at the gate?
I did. I don't sprint for much, but I did sprint for Travers.
Now, do you come to Travers every year, or is American Pharoah a little special for you?
American Pharoah is special, but I've been here the past probably 12, 15 years.
For most, the craziness of this day is just part of the excitement. In Saratoga, Jennifer Lewke, CBS 6 News.
This is CBS 6 News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lewke. I hope your Sunday's off to a great start. We're going to get to all of today's news in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at downtown. Look at those clouds. Looks a little ominous, but not too bad from what Alyssa's been telling me, right, Alyssa?
Hey, Jen, yeah, we're actually going to be dry for the remainder of the day. I will let you know coming up in a little bit. Jen?
Let's hope so. New this morning, President Obama is in Malaysia talking about the fight against terrorism. This comes 8 days after ISIS attacked in Paris. In Belgium, the capital is on lockdown. One suspect in the Paris attacks was reported to have been seen crossing into Belgium from France. Authorities are warning people in Brussels of a possible terror attack like the ones in Paris. Subways are closed and police and soldiers are on guard throughout the city. Today in Malaysia, President Obama addressed what he says is one of the terrorist weapons.
And we will not give in to fear.
19 people died in Friday's attack in a separate terrorist attack on a hotel in Mali. Reporter David McKenzie spoke with people who were there.
The guests are gone. The cracked glass.
State police in Catskill need your help in a burglary investigation. It happened on Thursday afternoon around 2 o'clock. State troopers say 2 men in 2 different cars, a red truck and a black truck, posed as landscapers to distract the homeowners, while a third man broke into the home and left with cash and jewelry. All of the suspects are described as white men in their 20s or 30s, between 5'9" and 6 feet tall. State police in Brunswick are investigating a similar burglary that happened later that same afternoon. If you have information on any of this, call State Police in Catskill at 622-8600. Well, more than 250 DEC forest rangers and other searchers are still looking for this man, 82-year-old Thomas Messick. He's been missing for a week now after not meeting up with his hunting group last Sunday near Lily Pond in Horicon. Messick was last seen wearing a camouflage jacket, coveralls, and a red and black plaid cap. There are a couple of ways you can help if you would like to. You can either join as a searcher if you're trained, or you can be a member of the support team. We have more information on all of this on our website at cbs6albany.com. Well, it's no secret that college is expensive, an average $32,000 a year at private schools and nearly $10,000 at public schools. That's according to the College Board. And with many families unable to foot the bill themselves, they're relying more than ever on financial aid. And that's why Schenectady County Community College held a free financial aid workshop for students and their families. Our Hubert Wiggins was there.
Shakira Singleton is a senior at Shenandoah High School.
In Saratoga Springs, an open house of the newly renovated Algonquin building. It was built in 1892 as the second largest apartment building in the city. The owners are just about finished with the renovations, turning it into 28 units instead of the current 44.
They've used historic tax credits, and they've retained a lot of the unique historic features of the building.
The tours were hosted by the Saratoga Springs Preservation Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at keeping the historical heritage of the city intact. In Bethlehem, Boy Scout Troop 75 held its 43rd annual Sports Smart fundraiser yesterday. It looks like they had a great turnout. They took in new and used winter sporting goods like skis, snowboards, boots, and coats and sold them to the public. A portion of the proceeds went to the troop for their expenses. There was also a silent auction and things like restaurant entertainment packages up for grabs. Everyone who came also donated to the regional food bank. Well, the holiday season has officially kicked off in Schenectady with the city's 48th annual holiday parade. The theme this year was musicals, with performances from shows like Cats, Beauty and the Beast, and holiday favorites like Elf and White Christmas. Our own Cody Holyoke was an MC at the parade last night. There he is right there, getting ready to kick things off. CBS 6, of course, a proud sponsor. Philip Morris from Proctor's Theater was the Grand Marshal who led more than 100 floats, bands, and marchers down State Street. Of course, like every year, Santa Claus made his appearance as well.
It's something very special. This region, this city, this county, we all look forward to it. It kicks off this wonderful, wonderful time of year.
Tens of thousands of people go to the parade every year. Just look at how packed State Street was. It's known as the largest nighttime parade in the Northeast. Well, still ahead here on CBS 6 News this morning, an inside look at how two local families are handling some of the most devastating news a doctor can deliver, how they're getting through it, and what they're fighting for coming up.
Plus, a cold front moving through the area as we speak. Temperatures are going to be chilly for a few days before we see a very big warm up for late November standards. 50s in your 7-day forecast. I'll let you know when, coming up after the break.